Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 4 of the course. It's as I keep remarking, it's kind of crazy. We're almost halfway through the course, if you can believe that. There are only 10 weeks in the course, and we're over a third of the way done, which is kind of blows my mind. But anyway, hope everybody had a good week. A few administrative things. Last week, I had the discussion on asking about your research topics, research questions, things like that. Now, I would like to say that I intentionally didn't divide you into groups so that everybody could benefit from seeing everybody else's research project. However, that would be false. I just forgot to click the box when I submitted the discussion assignment. But I hope that you guys benefited from seeing everybody else's research topic. But this week, I will remember to click the box so you can actually participate in the discussion in your groups. Good job on the discussion. I thought it was good. Also, I was glad to see people chiming in on the extra credit assignment about the research question, research topic. I want to post one of those again this week. And what I want you guys to do just throughout is I want you to reflect, right? This should be a time for reflecting on here was my initial topic. I've thought about it some, and I think, well, maybe I need to focus on this particular area, or maybe one of my classmates or I made a comment on your topic, and you say, okay, I kind of want to take it this direction. So it should be a process of constantly refining and reconceptualizing, what you're doing, because as you gain more information, as you think more about your particular topic, it's going to change, right? It's going to evolve. You're going to realize that, well, I thought I was interested in veterans reintegration, but what I'm really interested in is veterans civic engagement, right? For me, for example. Or maybe I'm really interested in value development and military training. You see, it just kind of evolves. It goes that way. It gets deeper and deeper and a bit more focused. So it's okay, and it's actually good if your topic at the end, it's shifted from where you began, which that essentially means that you're learning, right? You're learning about your topic, and you're learning about yourself and what your interests really are. So just kind of use that space each week as a reflective piece where you can actually reflect on, here's why I'm interested in the topic. Here's how it might have changed. I'm not expecting you to put a scientific response into that. I want that to be more of a reflective space. So I'll post one of those again this week for extra credit for those who are interested. People who are using the discussion questions, the course questions under discussion, I appreciate that. I think that's working pretty well. If you guys have any questions about the course, post them there, or first go there and see if other people have asked those questions. Okay. So last week we covered a bit of ground, right? We had there was a chapter on literature review and a chapter on the use of theory, and I just want to talk briefly about sort of each one of those. So literature review, what is it? Why is it important? It's especially important for you guys in this program because the research that you're going to be doing for your capstone papers is essentially a type of literature review. You're not going to be going out and conducting actual research studies. Now, some people who are doing honors theses, maybe they will be going out and doing original research, but you guys primarily are trying to sort of find the right articles, integrate those articles, synthesize the findings from two different disciplines on your particular topic. So that's what you're going to be doing in the capstone class. So lit review, what is it, right? Creswell talks about in the beginning how important it is to first identify your topic, which is what we've been doing. Then asking the question of, can my topic be researched? Can my topic be turned into a research question, right? And finally, should my topic be researched, right? Is it going to add anything of value to the scholarly discourse that's already been taking place, or am I just spinning my wheels, essentially, or doing something somebody else has already done? In that case, he would say, find a new question, right? So we start with that, right? And obviously that's huge because if we don't have a good topic and we don't have a good question, then we can't do a literature review. Because a literature review, essentially, you're going out and you're reviewing articles and research that's already been done, that is potentially relevant to your topic, right? So that's what it is. A lit review is just reviewing existing data, existing articles and arguments about your topic. Why is it important? It's important for several reasons. One is to make sure that you're not recreating the wheel, right? Make sure you're not, so let's say you spend 2 years conducting this great study, you put time, painstaking effort into this particular study, but you didn't do a thorough lit review. You get to the end of your project, you're like, okay, I want to go over this stuff one more time, and you like, oh God, yeah, somebody else has already done what I just spent the last 2 years doing, and then you're kind of 2 years wasted. So that's one reason. Another reason is, of course, that it helps inform your topic, right? Now, we all start with sort of a topic or a question in mind, but usually it's sort of vague, right, and a little bit broad. But as you do your lit review, you're going to refine your topic, you're going to refine your question, because you're going to be learning things from people who have already studied and already thought about your topic. All right, so it's informing you about your topic, it's helping to shape your question. And that's why, Creswell talked about starting with keywords, things, themes that you're interested in, because those are the things that you want to read. And then having those sort of broad keywords or themes going in, once you go in and find, these articles that are really speaking to what you're interested in, it's going to help you sort of really narrow in on what you're doing. How's a literature review used? It's used differently in different types of papers, right? Some papers, we're going back to that old qualitative, quantitative discussion. Some people put their literature review in the beginning. That's sort of the more traditional, quantitative method, right? You have a section on literature that says, this is what the body of research says about this particular topic, and here's how it relates to what I'm doing. In some qualitative studies, the literature review is actually presented at the end or done at the end of the study. So it really depends. But I would say the two primary uses are what I said earlier. Making sure that you're not retreading, and the second is that it helps you focus and refine your topic. How do you do it? Right? What are the techniques for actually doing a lit review? The first thing I would say is that if you guys have not spoken sort of one-on-one or maybe in a class with the librarians at USFSM, Diane Fulkerson and Todd Kelly, I would strongly suggest that you make an appointment to, especially when you're going about writing your paper or your proposal, sit down and have a meeting with them, because that's what they're paid to do. That's what they're trained to do. They're trained to do these kinds of searches, and they know the literature. They know all the journals, the places to look to find these things. They're the experts in doing a literature review and researching existing data. Right. So librarians primarily look at researching or finding and going through existing data, whereas scholars and academics, this is kind of a blurry distinction, but not only do that, but they go out and do original research. So that's sort of a difference between a research librarian and a scholar, somebody or an academic who's going out and actually doing original research. Anyway, make an appointment to meet with them, because I think it will really serve you well. Okay, so Creswell actually suggested finding. So you do your keyword search, right? You're looking in the journals. So if you haven't discovered it yet, and here's another reason to, because I'm not going to go through this step by step, but if you go to USF's library page that we have access through the My USF account, they have several queries and search boxes where you can sort of narrow things down by topic and by journal, by subject. That's a really powerful tool for actually trying to find articles that are scholarly articles that are related to your topic. And that's, I should say that, right? I mean, so we're not just looking for, Joe Muggs' blog on foster care, the state of foster care in Florida, all right? Because that's primarily his opinion. It's not been vetted. We primarily want to use reliable sources, right, and reliable academic sources. Usually that means that the article has been peer reviewed, right? People who are experts in the field have reviewed this article and made sure that it's not, bogus for the most part, right? Some slip through the cracks, but not many. And really add some credentials to that particular article rather than just somebody's ranting or opinion on the topic. Now, it's okay to use non-scholarly articles, I would say, like in Time Magazine or the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or whatever, to sort of supplement or perhaps even to motivate your topic, but I don't want you using that as your primary source of data. You need to be relying on peer-reviewed academic sources primarily. So that's where you find them, right? You find them on that USF library website. So you need to figure out how to use that. And maybe they have a video tutorial. I haven't looked. Maybe they have a video tutorial probably online that teaches you how to use that, or a PowerPoint tutorial, whatever. But the best way to do it would be to sit down with Diane or Todd and talk to them about how to do that. Cresswell said try to find 50 sources that are related to your topic. I think that's a little ambitious. You could probably do 20, 25, right, to start with. And what he says to do after that, after you find sort of these articles that seem to be related to your topic and your keyword, read the abstracts, right? So you read the abstracts of each of those 20 papers that you found. An abstract is 125, 250 words max. So you're looking at half a page to a page, right? Not much there. So you can read through 20, 25 pretty quickly. And then narrow it down, right? Maybe you take that 25 or that 20 down to 10 and say, or even, maybe down to 10. And you start reading those in more detail, right? And, maybe you get into a few of the articles and you say, okay, well, this one's kind of related to what I'm talking about, but not exactly, so I'm going to sort of just put this to the side. But maybe you find, and here's what you really want to do. Right? You really want to find that one article that's like, yeah, this is right exactly what I'm talking about. This person is right in line with my thinking, or right in line with at least, the topic. And so you read through that, and that article is probably going to reference all of the relevant literature that you want to look at for your particular topic, especially if it's such a close match. And the way that you do that is, if you find articles that are relevant, go to their references, go to their bibliography, and you can see all the things. They probably got 20 or 25 articles listed. You find those articles, and then you add them and you read them, right? And then you do the same thing for those articles. You go to the bibliography and you read what they have. And that's sort of the process that you go through for finding sort of the relevant literature. Okay, so last thing I want to say about the lit review is that you need some way to manage these references that you have, right? You need some place to keep them, so you don't have to keep going back and doing the research. People that have taken my intro class know that I'm a big fan of using visuals, and Cresswell talked about a literature map. And he sort of details out this literature map as a way to sort of organize and keep the literature that you have for your lit review. You don't have to do a lit map. I think that's probably the way that he's got it broken down is actually pretty interesting. You could also just do a spreadsheet, right? And you could say, here's my topic, here's the author, the year, here's the discipline that they're coming from, and sort of the broad overview of what their article's actually about. Just so you have a repository of those articles when you need to go back and use that and refer to a particular article. But you need some way to manage the lit review that you have. Whether you want to do the lit map or spreadsheet, that's up to you. But you do need to consider that. Okay, so the next chapter was on theory, right? And I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's important, right? And it can be scary, it can be overwhelming, but essentially, let's just break it down to the basics, right? When we're talking about a theory, what are we talking about, right? We're talking about an explanation, for whatever it is that we're interested in looking at, right? And we develop theories all the time, right? And, we have these explanations in our head for why things are the way that they are, right? Well, why did this? Why has there been the police this police brutality thing, racial discrimination thing going on? We all have our own theories in our head for why that might be the case, right? Why is that developed? What the problem is, and those are just sort of what we believe are the answers to those particular questions, right? So we form theories every day about lots of things, right? So a theory is just an explanation for, why something is the way that it is in the world, right? But we're trying to make sure that we're building reliable theories, right? That's what we're interested in academic research and academic papers, is making sure that we have theories that have been well thought out, that have been tested, that have really been thought about carefully, right? So you're doing the same thing, in a lot of cases, you're doing the same thing in these research papers as that you do in your everyday lives. You're forming answers to things to questions that you may be interested in, but you're doing it in a more rigorous way, and that's what we're doing when we're talking about theories in a research paper. Okay, so we can talk real quick about the variable stuff. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on this, but the traditional positivistic scientific method framework of independent variable, dependent variable, intervening variable, control variable, things like that, right? So essentially, when you're forming a theory or you're asking a research question on the traditional model, you have at least two elements, right? You have something that you want to be explained, which is your dependent variable, right? And then you have something that's doing the explaining, right? That's the independent variable. And you're positing that there's some sort of causal relationship between these two variables, right? So maybe we say that lack of education leads to higher crime rates. Let's just say that as an example, right? So our dependent variable in that case would be higher crime rates, right? That's the thing we want to be explained, is why are there higher crime rates in this particular area? Well, our independent variable could be lower education, right? Lower educational levels, right? And we're saying that having a lower educational level can lead to higher crime rates. So that's the independent variable that we're looking at. And they're also, so in this relationship, there's a temporal, a time-related thing that's going on. We're saying that if this, then this, right? If lower education rates, then higher crime rates, right? So we're saying that the lower education actually precedes the higher crime rates. Now, there can be these things called intervening variables that exist in between the independent and the dependent variable. Maybe there's something that's going on between sort of this lower education rate and the higher crime rate that's actually influencing that in some way that we need to consider when we're thinking about this particular relationship. So that's what an intervening variable is. It's something that actually modulates the effect in some way of the independent variable on the dependent variable. Now, the last one is control variables, right? Now, this was a question that I posed on or a statement that I posed on the quiz, that a control variable is a type of independent variable, and it is, because what we're saying is that there are other factors that influence this notion of higher crime rates rather than just lower education. Now, if we want to just want to measure the effects that lower education rates have on higher crime rates, we're going to have to control for all these other variables that may have a causal relationship to this notion of higher crime rates. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to answer our question, because maybe it wasn't lower education in this case. Maybe it was, the neighborhood that they lived in, right? Or maybe it was their socioeconomic status, right? All these things can have a causal relationship on higher crime rates. So if we don't control or account for those other variables, then we can't measure our initial question of, do lower education rates indicate a predisposition to higher crime rates, or something along those lines, right? So those are just, generally speaking, sort of the four types of variables we want to think about, right? We want to think about our independent variable, which is the thing that we're saying is causing. That's sort of our explanation, right? That at least we want to test out. That's our hypothesis. Our hypothesis would be that we believe that lower education rates can lead to higher crime rates, right? Or higher likelihood of committing a crime, right? So that's sort of our hypothesis. So we have that, right? But we have to consider what are the other things that we need to think about, right? That could potentially affect, that particular relationship, and that's where we look at our intervening variables, and where we also have to consider our control variables, which are things that if we want to accurately measure our particular question or test our particular hypothesis, we have to take those things into account, right? So that's just a very brief, down and dirty, right? The key takeaway at this point for you guys will be independent and dependent variable. Dependent variable is the thing you want to be explained. Independent variable is the thing that's doing the explaining, right? So independent variable precedes dependent variable. If you wanted to create some sort of mnemonic or something like that, maybe you do something like IDP. Is that right? IVP DV. I don't know, something like that, right? Independent variable precedes dependent variable. Something crazy like that you can remember. Maybe you can create some sort of statement based off of that. Anyway, I can't think of it right now because I didn't sleep much last night. But you guys get the drift of what I'm saying, right? Independent variable precedes dependent variable. Independent variable is the thing that's doing the explaining. Dependent variable is the thing that needs explaining. Okay. Once again, we see this notion of quantitative and qualitative keeps coming up throughout this, and what are the roles of theories in each one of these, right? And really, it comes down to what the purposes are of each particular research. Now, these are all generalizations, but generally speaking, quantitative research is trying to verify an existing theory or an existing hypothesis, right? So we have this theory that says that lower education rates lead to a higher likelihood of committing a crime. That's our theory, that's our hypothesis. When we're doing a quantitative study, what we're trying to do is we're trying to prove or verify that statement, right? We're starting with this theory in mind that we have about lower education rates, and we're going out to prove that, right? So it follows that in a quantitative study, the theory comes first, right? Because you have to start with the theory that you're going to verify. So you're using your theory right up front to say, okay, I have this question about, higher crime rates and the causes of higher crime rate, and Jones has this theory that says, people with lower education, lower levels of education, are more likely to commit crimes, right? So that's my theory. I'm using Jones's theory of lower education, right? And what I want to do in my study is I want to verify, right, or I want to test Jones's theory, because maybe I agree with it, maybe I don't, right? Maybe I think that Jones' theory is actually wrong or misleading. So I wanted to test that theory, and then I want to write up, once I find whatever my results are, I want to say, okay, well, Jones' theory is not accurate in this case, right? Jones' theory is wrong because he didn't consider this, or he didn't control for this particular variable, or he didn't consider these intervening variables in the right sort of way. So in quantitative, theory comes first, right? So, and I've heard people call it this way, right? There are two logics for quantitative and qualitative study. In a quantitative study, you're using the logic of verification, which means that you're starting with a theory and you're trying to verify that, right? Whereas in a qualitative study, it's the logic of exploration, or the logic of discovery, I think it's sometimes called, right? So we don't exactly know. Maybe we don't have a good understanding of what we're even talking about when we're talking about higher crime rates. Are we talking about violent crimes? What exactly do we mean when we're talking about crime rates? Is there a particular crime that we're interested in? But we don't know. We don't have a good understanding. Perhaps there haven't even been any theories about whatever our particular topic may be. Right? So we want to go out and we want to actually explore this topic. And we don't want to start with a theory and say, I'm going to test that theory. We want to try to perhaps build our own theory from the ground up. Right? And that's the logic of discovery. Right? So theory can play a lot of roles in a qualitative study. Right? Some people do use it in the beginning to say, this person has this particular theory, and I wanted to explore that theory in greater detail because I think that theory may be inadequate or may be misleading in a certain way. So it can be the impetus for that, right? Oftentimes in qualitative studies, they follow sort of a grounded theory model, which is where the theory typically arises at the end, right? You're starting with your observations, you're starting with your questions, you're refining your questions and your insights as you go, and then you're developing a theory sort of from the ground up, right? And once again, another way that Creswell describes it is this sort of dichotomy between deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning, right? In quantitative, it's deductive because you're sort of starting with your theory and you're seeing what can be derived from that theory, right? But it's sort of a top-down. Whereas with qualitative, you're sort of starting from the bottom and working your way up, right? It's inductive. So that's inductive, starting with these insights and seeing what they have in common and seeing sort of what kind of conclusions we can draw from the commonalities between these insights. So, generally speaking, you could say that quantitative starts with theory, qualitative ends with theory. That's not always right, but that's sort of a good way to think about it, at least in the beginning. Okay, so that's all I want to say about theory at this point. Obviously, if you guys have questions about theory or the lit review, but practically speaking, a good action item for you guys would be to schedule an appointment with the research librarians, or at least view a tutorial on how to use the USF library's site for actually doing your lit review and how to use the search queries to find relevant journals and things like that. Okay, that's it for this week. If you guys have any questions, shoot me an email. I will post your discussion question on Wednesday, and I'm also going to post the extra credit assignment on Wednesday. So if you guys need any need any help, have any questions about that, shoot me an email. Happy to do it. Hope you guys have a good week. No quiz this week, so that's exciting. Enjoy it because the next 2 weeks we have the third quiz and then we have the midterm coming up after that. So I hope you guys have a good week. If you need anything, let me know.